Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast. This is where this episode we got a special guest. Before we get there, though, leave a comment. Let me know how I'm doing. Any criticism is good criticism. Yeah, let's get into it. As you can see, I'm in the car, but we got a special guest, Dylan Hernández. Go and introduce yourself. Where you from? Where you been at? How long you served?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, first I want to say thank you for having me. My name is Dylan Hernandez. I'm actually officially medically retiring on Monday from after 12 years in the Marine Corps. During that time, I left right after high school, straight to the Marine Corps, and got to do a lot of fun stuff. During that time, I was a martial arts instructor. Martial arts instructor trainer, water survival instructor. We met at the depot when we were drill instructors, and loved my time as a drill instructor. As you can see, I had a couple have a couple things from there as well. I actually ultimately left the depot as the drill master at DI school, and actually got to be the drill master for the first integrated DI school class. So the first females that were trained on the West Coast. That was a pretty cool opportunity. And then here recently, as far as Monday, will be officially have made my transition into the real estate space, being a full-time realtor and business owner.
That's what's up, man. Hey, well, congratulations. Unfortunately, medically separated, but it is what it is. Congratulations, though.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Where have you been stationed at over your short time in the military?
Yeah, so during my time in the military, my first duty station after MOS school and all that stuff was Cherry Point, North Carolina. So I was there for a little over right at 4 years, and then after Cherry Point, went to the depot, and then after the depot, I actually was selected for MECEP, and then God had a different plan, and I got dropped for COVID and got PCS to the Naval Air Station Joint Reserve Base in Fort Worth here in Texas, which is pretty close to where I grew up. So it was just it was the perfect scenario. God had a plan, and he provided the opportunity for me to have a smooth transition that I did.
Nice. And you transitioned into the real estate business. What got you into real estate?
Yeah, so for me, when I was, I actually had a master guns when I was a sergeant that he owned all these rental properties and kept telling me, the benefits of owning real estate. And I was like, no, I'm not ready. The typical, never bought a house kind of mentality. And then it wasn't until I was a drill instructor, actually. And we, as all of us probably did, got this presentation from Anthony Glenn. Shout out to Anthony Glenn and his team. They're great real estate team, super knowledgeable. And I started to really look into it, got into the real estate investing side of things and learning about that. And then I bought my first house in California, and I really saw the benefits of it. And, bought my house there for, just under 500 grand. And then here I am with, 200 grand in equity now for, something I paid six grand to buy the house total after closing costs. So then fast forward to realizing I'm going to end up, getting out of the Marine Corps. And to me, I realized that real estate was an opportunity for me to utilize what I learned in the real estate or in the Marine Corps in a different way. So I can continue to help people. And then it was also a job that my work ethic and willingness to work directly correlated to my how productive I am in my business as well. Whereas in the Marine Corps, you're paid according to your rank, but you learn when you start to get out that, you actually get paid for your work ethic, which is an awesome new concept.
That's dope, man. And how you said you took one group of skills or skills tools that you learned from the Marine Corps, you applied it to real estate, and now you're talking about. I remember you talking about 52 listings a year. That's what you're trying to go for. Tell us
Yep.
about that. How do those two merge and correlate? Obviously it's working well, but give me something tangible for the listeners. Like, hey, this is how it's working.
Yeah, so the one thing that we learn as Marines, and especially as drill instructors, is just to have a relentless work ethic, to be able to know that no matter what comes your way, like you're going to put in the work and make things happen. And in this job of being able to take that mindset and go in there, like, because as a as a Marine, as a drill instructor, you go in there and your mindset's not, oh, I'm a new drill instructor, or I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're a drill instructor. You're there to train your Marines, right? Same thing in real estate. Like, you're there, you're a real estate agent, like, period. You can still get sued the same as an experienced agent. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
your job is to help your clients to the best of your ability and ensure, and with the biggest transaction of their life in most cases. And so taking that mentality of just relentless pursuit of perfection and be able to utilize that into a different, occupation, was something that I started to see really fast that, that goes a long way in these kind of businesses.
Nice. I like that. So you talk about, excuse me, you talk about God. You said God had a different plan for me.
For sure.
How did your spiritual life take effect, or was it affected by your military service and or transitioning out? And how did it go from here to point A to point B, and if it stayed still?
Yeah, so for me, I would say it's continued to grow stronger. I grew up in a faith-based household, and then as I kind of got, and I wouldn't say that I ever like steered away from it, but I did. I wasn't as strong in my faith, I guess you'd say. But throughout my military career, and this is something that very few people know about me, but I prayed before every major thing that I did. But before, and because there's a lot of things that I just did because I was like, you know what, I'm going to go for it. Like, I might not be ready for it, but I'm going to go for it.
Hmm.
And I would just pray and be like, Lord, just be with me, and if it be your will, let it be done. If not, then let me learn from it. And to me, it's been amazing to see, like, and that's been after everything that I've done. And I've, had the opportunities to do a lot of things, and it really taught me the what they say in the Bible of, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And
Hmm.
I really saw that through my career in the Marine Corps. And then I got to OCS, and same thing, I just, something just felt off when I was there, during like their, what do you call it? The beginning, because it was COVID time. So I
Yeah.
was still in that first portion or whatever before the quarantine. And, I prayed, and I'd already passed the COVID test, been fine, whatever. And it was like, Lord, if I'm where you want me to be, let it be done, or just give me a sign that I'm in the right place that you want me to be.
Yeah.
And he works in funny ways. And the next day I got COVID and got dropped. Yeah. And then, and for me, I just trusted that, okay, that's my sign. But then I was like, well, what am I going to do? Because I was done as a drill instructor, and I had already moved my family here in Texas. And
Yeah.
so like, well, Lord, you give me a sign, but where are you taking me now? And I was told by the monitor, sorry, there's no spots for you in Texas. Cause I was like, hey, my family's already there. Like, I'm up for orders now. Like, where can I go? And, I don't know if you remember, Valdez from the depot. He was a kilo hat as well.
Yeah.
Uh, and I hit him up because I knew he was in Fort Worth, and he just so happened to know a new unit that was standing up there, and they had the only spot for an active duty big for my MOS. And
Wow.
and that mass sergeant hit me up. He's like, hey, Valdez told me about you. I'll see you in a couple months. And I got orders to Fort Worth, and I was like, it's just crazy to see how God worked. And again, I've got so many. I could talk for hours about it, but there's just been too many things that I've prayed for and just for guidance, and it's worked in a way that I just can't deny. What's happened.
The Bible says only a fool will deny that there's no God, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it sounds like divine step by step has been placed for you in it. Great, man. That's awesome. I appreciate that. But let's peel a layer back real quick.
For
You
sure.
talk about spirituality. You said I wasn't always in there. What happened while you were in the service that took a dip?
That's a good question. I I can't really. I wouldn't say I could pinpoint it directly. I would just say like I was just focused on other things. Like being a new Marine, trying to get my feet under me, find what I'm going to do. So and like when I was in MOS school and stuff like that, I started to hang out necessarily not with the best, most motivated crowd. And so I had a little bit of a terminal lands kind of mentality in MOS school. So I would say that might have also kind of contributed to it. I was just focused on other things. And then luckily I had a good mentor. His name is Michael Doherty when I was in Cherry Point. Shout out to Michael. He's a great guy. He's a gunner sergeant at the time. And he kind of took me under his wing, and then again, just things kind of escalated from there in a positive way.
Absolutely, man. Sounds like I need to be you're my electronic Rolodex. I need you to pick your brain a little bit, man, because it sounds like
Well, brother.
everything that you're doing is on the up and up, and that's where I want to be. I just want to be a small folk over here, Dylan. I want to be where you're at. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Stop. Stop.
what I got to touch against spirituality because right now service members suffer with mental resilience, right?
Yep.
And what's the best way to be better mentally? I think
Yeah.
spiritually, you gotta lean into that broken part of you mentally, and just lean into something spiritual, something holistic. It doesn't have to be faith based, religion, Christianity, Catholicism, whatever it is that you're leaning into, but you got to lean into it. It's because it helps you here, and it helps your soul here and your heart, right?
Yep.
What you said, your mentor, what happened that you realized that this is something that you needed for your success in life, right? Because you're
Mhm.
married. Do you have kids?
I do. I'm married. We've got two children.
So how did what triggered you to be like, okay, I need to lean in back into what my roots were, brilliance in the basics, right? It kind of correlates.
Right.
What happened that you need to lean back into that spirituality?
I would say it didn't start off like from a faith based realization. That mentor Mike, he took me under his wing and kind of gave me a new perspective on the Marine Corps. And then from there, I started leaning into just going back into where I started of my roots of just being competitive and always wanted to be the best that I could in everything that I did. And not necessarily to be able to say, hey, I'm better than you, but to be able to create competition for us all to rise together.
Mm,
And in doing so, like I started to get into again, before every major thing I did, starting with the MAI course, I wasn't ready for it, but I was just like, Lord, just be with me, and then it ended up working out, and I ended up, you know, having a great time there, graduating there, and then on to the next course. And from there, when I was at the MEI course, prayed about it, and I failed my first test. I didn't take it serious enough, but then I passed the next passed the remedial test with 100, and then after that, found out that I would have gotten honor grad if I hadn't failed that one test. And it was another spark in me that was like, I'll never let that happen again. And so everything that I did beyond that was like, okay, my goal and focus is to be, honor grad or gung ho at every class that I go to. And again, prayed before everything I went, try to find the tactical, like what is required to accomplish this goal and be forward thinking, and then attacked every goal that way. And then it brought it into fruition at the end of the day.
that's you keep touching prayer,
Yeah.
and I was reading a book. There's no atheist in foxholes, right? I was
Mm.
just kind of skimming through it. I don't know if you heard about it or not, but it's a chaplain talks about his time serving with the Marines in the Navy, and he talks about how else can you have the answers if you don't pray, right?
Yeah.
How else can you move forward or give the people the right advice, or get the right advice, or get that feeling or that sensation of conviction of this is what I should be doing, this is where I should be moving forward.
Right.
Prayer is a big thing. How did that help you? Were you always married in the military?
No, I got married when I just got promoted to corporal. I did two back to back 31st Muse, and then came back, and my best friend and his wife introduced me to his wife's best friend, and then it came about that way.
Okay. And so how did that, now you talk about military and then now family,
Hmm.
how did those line up, if they did? And
Hmm.
in terms of your transition out from the
Hmm.
military, how did they were they hindered? Was it affected by military service? Was it not the best relationship possible in the
Right.
military? What
Hmm.
happened there in terms of relationship wise,
Yeah.
military spirituality transitioning out?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think every military member at some point can relate to this. And me saying it didn't align for a long time. And what I mean by that is because for me, being as goal oriented as I am, and have always been. I just being young and naive and not really having my focuses in the right areas, at least not holistically and in a harmonious way. So in the beginning, I was more focused on my career, and was like,
Mm.
okay, I've got the next goal, So I got married, and then shortly after getting married, we got pregnant with my son, and then I got deployed to Turkey, and my son was born when I was on deployment. And then I came back and met my son at 3 months old. And shortly after that, went to the MAIT course, or went to Sergeant's course. Shortly after that, went to the MAIT course. Shortly after that, went to be a drill instructor. And then, which is a 3-year deployment in itself, And so it was just, it was back to back. I was focused on my career because in my head at the time, it was like, my career is what's going to provide for my family. And the best that I am at my career, the more I can provide for my family. But in reality, I wasn't realizing I didn't have, I kind of had blinders on, and I wasn't realizing that, by focusing solely on my career and what's in front of me, I wasn't taking care of my family the best and being present when I was home. And that's something I didn't really learn. I wouldn't even say I didn't learn until I started to focus on transition. And after I left the depot and stuff, because for me, when I got to the depot, that's probably the most locked down I was in my career
Yeah.
ever. Like I told First Sergeant Coburn, and I'm sure you remember him. He would ask all the drill instructors there, "What do you want to do whenever you leave? When you leave here, like what do you want to be by the time you leave here?" And I was a brand new Bobby, never, just got done with DI school, and I told him I want to be the drill master at DI school. And all, of course, all the hats were like, "Who's this freaking guy? Like this guy, you haven't even done your first cycle.
Calm down, Bobby. Right? Hell yeah.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So, but I was locked in, and then, but again, it wasn't until I like left, and I think OCS was kind of that pivotal moment, and again, another moment where I prayed because I looked at the long term. I looked at where my family was up until that point, how much I had already missed. And then I looked at the next 10 to 15 years until it's going to take me to retire. What does that look like for my family? And how much more time is that going to be away from my family? And,
Mm.
and again, that's when I was just like, maybe I'm not on the right path, like, yeah, I've seen a lot of success, but does that success mean a success in life, or is that just in one area? And for me, I don't want to just be like, you can have a career all you want, but if you're not successful, like back home, like what's it good for anyways?
Yeah.
And to answer your question, I would say it wasn't until I started focusing on my transition. And that's another thing that I liked about real estate is it offers me the ability to be like, when my wife tells me, hey, the kids got this on this day, all right, I'll be there. It's not let me look around and let me call this person, make sure I can get off or nothing like that. It's like, no, I'll be there.
That's awesome, man. And it sounds like you're successful in your transition. We're gonna touch that a little bit here shortly. Um, Let me ask you this. Obviously, you didn't see it, you know, right away, and you're talking about your transition out, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when you realize that your priorities were, God. Your priorities were family, and those kind of were put on the back burner. It sounds like because they were kind of just taskers in life. Like, okay, I got married. Next one, next
Right.
one, next
Mm-hmm.
one, and uh, if you can share, if you can be honest, and because again, the listener are looking for honesty and transparency. What's
Mm-hmm.
the biggest friction point that you and your family saw while you were in terms of your goal? You're obviously moving forward with your career, not
Right.
necessarily with your family, because they were kind of on the back burner because they got to figure out. And I'm with you too, right? Been in 14 years now, and I really
Yep.
real I'm trying not to get my time back because I can't. Right,
Yeah.
that's a unrealized realistic goal. I
Mm-hmm.
just want to spend quality time now because I have that ability to now as a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of the admin chief, kind of in between the OIC and the Marines, and I kind of make my own schedule ish, right? So
Right.
when my wife needs me, I'm like, hey, can you do this? Yeah, give me 5 minutes. I'll call you back. I'm just gonna let my boss know I'm out, right?
Right.
And I
Mm-hmm.
have the liberty to do that now. Maybe not at the beginning.
Right.
What is the biggest? What's the big? Back to my question. What's the biggest friction point that you and your family saw? Uh, if you can be honest.
Yeah, of course. For me, and I'm sure you could relate to this, was definitely the depot. You know, in a life where it's not a when are you going to be home today, it's when are you going to be home this week, or if you know this month. You know, it's
Yeah.
so it's and again because I was so focused on my goals there that you know I'd get home and I'd be falling asleep trying to play with my son, or my first date with my wife when I was on the depot for her birthday. Um, I woke up to her looking at me like across because we're getting sushi, and I wake up and she's just staring at me like seriously, and I'm like I'm so sorry, you know. And we laugh about it now, you know, but at the time, like those are the kind of things that like when I get home, I wasn't home, you know. I was when I got home, that's I was just struggling to stay awake, you know, and
Yeah.
it wasn't really until the end of my time on the depot because again, you're so used to just this fast-paced environment and there's always something that needs to be done, and then you get home and you're like I don't want to do anything, you know. And then if you hear your spouse complaining, you like it. For me in the beginning I wanted to be like what do you do, like what have you done all day, like what do you have to complain about, you know, which was
Right.
horrible for me to say, you know, because they have a whole different dynamic, you know. And it wasn't until like I sat back and kind of realized like you know they're not the one that signed up to be a drill instructor, you know. They didn't sign up for this job. They are your family, you know. And so I try to change my perspective towards the end. And again, you know, it did happen later on in my time on the depot. To my focus was when I got home, no matter how tired I am, no matter what I've been going through, I'd try to find one thing that my wife would be doing back home that I can do instead. If that means doing the dishes, I'll go do the dishes. If that means just taking the kids to for a second, I'd be taking the kids. Whatever that meant, I had tried to you know fix that by doing something that she would be normally doing. But the depot was definitely a time that we had the biggest the most issues because again the family dynamic, the schedule, getting home, not being present, going back and forth to Texas because my daughter lives in Texas with her real dad. So it was just a lot going on at once.
Ah, that's crazy. So, you talk about fast pace, always doing this, always doing that, T days, this, that, and the other,
Yep.
Black Friday, whatever it is that we're doing out there, you
Right.
know, it's so fast paced. They're moving at a different pace.
Yep.
And so we're not when we slow down, you talk about transition from the depot. When we
Hmm.
slow down, did life hit you hard or was it I kind of snapped in, I'm ready to go, let's get.
I would say in certain ways it did, in certain ways it didn't. And what I mean by that is, luckily, I had that year at DI school that kind of helped as far as the fleet transformation of
No.
not being, you know, in that senior drill search, you know, mentality. So it helped in that way. But the thing that I noticed whenever I got stationed in Texas was we had some growing pains that I attributed to we had been we haven't that was the first time in our whole marriage that we had been together consistently, you know, because so that like growing pains that people typically would see in the beginning of their relationship, it felt like we were kind of starting to see later on in our relationship because we were actually had time where I was coming home every day, and you know that had the kids schedules, and we had different things that was almost new to me just because of the everything I'd
Yeah,
done previous in the Marine Corps, you know. So
that's crazy, man. 'Cause I'm with you too because I remember, oh boy, I had to figure out, and I think only service members can relate to this, right?
yeah.
I think that we're in a constant, whether you're the husband or the wife, whatever it is, you're never fully home. And
Yeah.
so, I see all these posts, all these videos, inspiration, like just get in there and get snapped, get in there and just take it.
Right.
But that doesn't really apply. We kind of, for me, anyways, in my experience, it's kind of like I got to slowly get my snap ins and then I'm going to start firing my right. It doesn't really I can't just jump in there because I'm going to
Right.
ruin their vibe. And I don't know if you remember Randall Parks. He was with
Yeah. Of
Lima
course.
or
Of
India.
course. Okay.
He was talking about like his biggest friction point was I was in the way and I had
Hmm.
to figure out how to be a way for them
Right.
to complete whatever that they're doing. Was that the same issue with you? Because I know it's the same issue with me.
Um, I would say for me it was yeah, like trying to find your place. Is that what you mean? Like find your
Yeah.
place at home? Yeah, I would say that trying to plug in and be able to be a help now. You know, it's not just like I'm home and I'm just trying to just relax. Like I'm at home and I'm trying to be at home. And what can I do to help? You know, can I take the kids to practice or whatever the case is? You know, so like there's that transitional period, and I like to call it, because a lot of people, they talk about having balance in life. And I've come to realize, like, there's no way you can find balance, but you can find harmony.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is, at the end of the day, whether it's Marine Corps, whether it's civilian side of things, like, you do have to support your family in some way, and that time is not going to be equal to the time you spend with your family in most cases. So it's about finding the harmony and the balance, or so not the balance, but the harmony. So where it all works together. So yeah, you might be spending more time here, but when you're home, you are home, and you've got these scheduled times for this. You got your vacations. You got this and that. So that way everything works together, and there's not that friction point.
Absolutely, man. Hey, let's talk about. Hey, I appreciate you being transparent. Honestly, I think everybody, and honest, excuse me, and everybody truly, you can hold into realistic life experiences. Let's talk about your transition, man. It
Yeah,
sounds like, you know, skill. Did you do SkillBridge?
I did. Yeah. So,
So
I,
SkillBridge has been good to you, obviously,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Hitting the. Have you hit? Are you halfway through your 52? What's that like right now?
Yeah, not yet, but I am on track to get make that happen, which is a huge jump from last year. So I mean, I'm over doubling my business from last year. But as far as the transition goes, like for me, I I think what helped me, because I've had a lot of people that have mentioned my transition is, and it seems like it's gone pretty smooth, and I would say relatively it has. But I think the reason behind that, and one thing that I always try to express to other military members, is I started my transition almost 2 years ago. Like I
Oh,
I went with the vision of knowing, like, I'm, whether it's whether I'm getting out just by getting out, or unfortunately at the time, like, after the depot, my body just started catching up to me. I knew that I was getting out, and so therefore I started implementing that plan, about 2 years ago, and identifying, okay, if I'm getting out, what I'm going to do. And I found out I was going to be real estate. All right, so if I'm going to do real estate, what do I need to do there? And it's funny because I remember in OCS, when I realized I was getting dropped, and I just kind of felt like God was leading me a different direction. Um, I made a list, and it was, the road. I think I titled it like the Road to Millionaire, and I just found it like a month ago. And I made a list of, okay, these are the things that I'm going to do to get me to my goal. At the time, I think it was a 5 year or 10 year goal. I think it was a 5 year goal, and it's funny to see, like, I've already started accomplishing those kind of things. And so, to answer your question, as far as the transition goes, I started 2 years ago and started finding what are the tangible skills and the tangible things that I need to be doing in order to ensure that whenever that time comes, whenever that DD-214 is signed and there's no more paychecks coming in, am I prepared for it? And luckily, because I went there with a roadmap, I was able to hit these little accomplishments along the way to ensure that it did go as smooth as possible.
that's a my sounds like a solid plan. If you're listening, tuning in, um, plan ahead. Like for me, I knew when I first stepped on the yellow footprints, I knew I was going to be in for life.
Really?
If I could do a 20-year contract, I'm in there like swimwear, hit it right. I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it, and not knowing the headache that it has been,
Hmm.
right, all the way up till now, I'm like, man, at least my yeses were yes, and
Yeah.
my nos were nos, because
Right.
if it was anything else, I would have been out after 4 years, probably divorced, trying to figure out how to find a real job, right? And
Right.
thank God that by the grace of God, right, I have my wife and my 4 kids still, and I'm
Awesome.
I'm working towards, right, the 20 or maybe the 30, depending on how this package goes for officer, right?
There
Who
you go.
knows? Whatever God has planned for us, He's gonna make it happen, just like you, right? It was
Hmm.
divine. Every
Yeah.
step it was ordained, right? Same thing
Mhm.
here. It's like, it was too easy to submit this package. It was too easy to do this. It was too easy to do that. I'm like, God, if this is the way it's going, then I'm all in, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at right now. And I talked to Randall a couple weeks back. He talked about transition. He knew that the Marine Corps was not going to see eye to eye with him. That the
Yeah.
organization, or people in the organization, not the organization, but people in the organization and his career, where he wanted
Hmm.
to be at.
Right.
And he said he's the same thing with you, man. It sounds like you have to transition way before your EAS,
Yep.
way before, so it'll be smooth. Did you have any mentors along the way in terms of transition? Did you pick some people's brains? What else can, besides that, the biggest thing is if you know you're getting out 4 years in and you're only doing four, then start your transition then, right?
Yep.
That's solid advice. But did you have mentors along the way to help you with that?
So in regards to mentors on the transition side, I can't say that I can pinpoint any specific person, but I was always talking to other people, either that I've gotten out or, are planning on getting out and stuff like that. And mainly because I would say there's not one person, just because very few people I learned plan so far out. I would say Randall's one of the very few people that did. And you see it worked out phenomenal for him. Nelson Coburn, he
Yeah,
was another one that had a phenomenal retirement and everything else. So I wouldn't say there was a specific person. For me, it was just I had to find what actions is it gonna take, and because I'd seen so many senior leaders that didn't do it. Like for me, the decision to make that plan early on was because I had seen so many that went without a plan that either had to get back in or they got out and they struggled and they had these horrible transitions. And so you learn from the good, you learn from the bad, and you make the best decision for you. And so luckily I was able to see those good and bad examples and create a plan together and make it happen.
absolutely, man. Sounds awesome out, and I thank God for that because it's been smooth for you. At least from what I see. I do have one question for you.
Yeah.
We're in a culture right now with young people and mental resilience, right? We talked about it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
What up here, if you can pinpoint something tangible, like, hey, this is what it was. This is what I was dealing with. This is what I did. Whether it be physical fitness, whether it be reading more, whether it be praying more, right? It sounds like you were praying and pretty physically fit. Give them something that's not this that they can do to help them with this, right? I'm sure you
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm talking about, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to bettering yourself, you have to better yourself in all manners, because I think it's just like the three-legged stool. If one leg is gone, it's not going to stand, and you have to be good, in my opinion, spiritually, physically, and mentally. Like if you're not if your mental health is not good, you're not going to be able to perform in the others. If your spiritual health is not good, I would argue that you're not going to have the performance and the confidence in yourself and what you've got to come. And if you're not physically, good, then your body and it's going to catch up to you.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you've got injuries or not, because I'm getting medically retired, but I still try to do what I can with the limitations that I have from my injuries, because I recognize that if I just let myself go and just don't do anything, it's going to be far worse than pushing through and doing what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in regards to like the tangible things, it's ensuring that you're taking care of yourself holistically and that you're not just focused on one area, because it will catch up to you eventually.
Yeah, man. Growth, change starts with you as the
Mm-hmm.
individual, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
things are going to happen, chaos is going to happen, uh, but it sounds like you really you took it, you took life by the reins, and you said, "Look, a change is going to happen. Change is going to start with me first,
Mm-hmm.
before it's out,
Exactly.
before it's outward." So if you're listening, yeah, I know some Marines that are going through it now, service members that are going through it now. Change starts with you. It really does. It really
I got
does. Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
No, I just wanted to say I got one more thing to that, is control the controllables. I made a post about this last week. But so many people, they focus on the outside things that they can't control. You can't control, what other Marines do. You can't control what your command does. You can't control if you get an injury that's career ending. Like, yes, you can do things to try to prevent those things, but at the end of the day, like, freak things happen, right? But what you can control, and the only thing you do have 100% control on, is your actions and what you do to prepare for anything that comes, whether that's getting out, whether that's financially, whether that's, whatever the case is, you can control yourself and how you respond to certain situations that you have. And that ultimately is going to dictate whether you succeed or whether you fail, regardless of what gets thrown at you, whether it's good or bad. So
Yeah.
control the controllables, and you'll be able to succeed regardless of what comes your way.
Absolutely, man. You kind of jumped into my last question where,
That's
hey, give them the last tool for the toolbox, something tangible. Control the controllables. That's what it is. If you're listening, control the controllables. You can't control everything, but you can control yourself and the choices you make for you and your family. So that's good. If you're listening, hey, Dylan, where can they reach you at if they're trying to learn some more?
For sure. If anyone wants to have a conversation, whether it's transition, whether it's Marine Corps, whether it's real estate, or you just need someone to listen to you, because I understand that in most cases that's all most people need is just someone to listen to them. And you can find me on Instagram at _Dylan Hernandez, or if you Google Dylan Hernandez Realtor, you'll find me. Same thing on
Take
Facebook.
it easy. Take it easy. Well, I'm
So
sorry. Go
hey,
ahead. Go. Keep going.
yeah, exactly. So I'm trying to make it easy for everybody to find me if they need. But yeah, and then on Facebook, Dylan Hernandez Realtor. You'll find me on there, and I'm happy to help anyone that I can, provide inspiration, motivation, and education where I can.
All right.
Hey,
Shoot.
Rip.
That sounds dope to me, man. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Pit Talk, pulling pits and pins with your host Gunny G. We're service members help service members. Period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast and on social media platforms. Again, let me know how I'm doing. Any criticism is good criticism. Ladies and gentlemen, we out.
Yeah.